So all of the Bible runs the same theme throughout it, which is the theme of the twins. The elder twin is evil, and the second brother is from God, just like with Cain, the eldest brother of Abel. Now, Cain, being from the side of Satan and being evil, kills his brother Abel. He murdered Abel, and then he lied about it to God, again showing he's from the evil side, the serpent seed. Okay? The Jewish lore is that he's actually the son of Samael, or Satan, from the Garden of Eden. And again, the evil brother is the older brother, the eldest brother. He's the one who first murders someone, because he's of the seed of the serpent. Two seeds. Again, Cain is the son of Samael, or Satan, or the serpent. Now, the important thing to note is that even though Samael is the head of the Satans, or the accusers, he still remains as one of God's servants. Now, the next story is of Abraham's sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Again, Ishmael, the first son of Abraham, so he's of the evil side. So Isaac or Ishmael, okay? Isaac is of the good side, the godly side, and Ishmael is of the side of Satan. But his name means God has hearkened, so he still fulfills a divine promise. But later on, Sarah has a child, which is Isaac. And so because Ishmael is of the evil side, he's cast out. His mother and Ishmael leave, and then the good son, the godly son, the younger son, Isaac, is left to be the inheritor of the promise from God. But you see, the 12 nations, or 12 sons of Ishmael, there's always a dual side. Just like 12 tribes of Israel, 12 tribes of Ishmael, because there's always a dual side. After them, we get to Jacob and Esau. Esau, again, is the firstborn. Jacob is a supplanter, the leg puller. Seizes the heel. And right from the get-go, the boys displayed very different natures as they matured, because one's of the evil side and one's of the side of God. So Esau was the hunter, the hairy man, the red man, and Jacob is his mother's favorite. So it's the same story being retold over and over again of the dual twins, the dual sides. The interesting thing is that the guardian angel of Esau is Satan, or Samael. That's who the guardian angel of Esau is. He's connected to Rome because he's red. So Jacob deceives him by offering him the bowl of stew in exchange for his birthright, which Esau agrees to. Then Jacob deceives his father, and his father says, "You have the voice of Jacob, but your hands are the hands of Esau." He asks him if he's his son. He says, "Yes, I am." Afterwards, Isaac tells Esau that by your sword you shall live. Now this is echoed by Jesus when he says, "Those who live by the sword die by the sword." So this is hearkening back to Esau, and Jesus is saying that eventually in the end times Esau will be destroyed with the sword because Esau lives by the sword. So that's what that goes back to. But eventually, just like how Jesus is like Jacob, he's Esau, but he's actually Jacob, but he pretends to be Esau. He will eventually reconcile with Jacob, even though he's from the evil side, the side of Cain, and Jacob and Esau will come together again. That is the mystery that's in the Gospels, that's in the New Testament, that Jesus is actually from the side of the serpent because he is also the eldest and the firstborn of the twins. So he's actually the guardian angel of Esau. He is Satan, is what these stories are actually telling us. But just like they reconcile, even though he's actually from the side of Cain, he's really Jacob, just dressed up as Esau. And eventually he will come back and destroy Esau or the Gentiles. That's what these stories are alluding to. Now the next one is the wives that take up these roles, as Leah is the first wife of Jacob, and she's the older sister. Rachel is of the side of God, the younger sister, and their children play the same role. Leah's children, the elders, they are from the side of the serpent. They sin, and so they're going to lose their birthright, just as Esau lost his birthright. So in this one, Rachel She plays the role of Jacob. Reuben gives his mother Leah mandrakes, which are for fertility, and Rachel does what Jacob did to Esau. She makes a bargain with her to get the mandrakes from her, and she'll give over her night with her husband. And this results in Rachel allowing to have her two sons, which are Joseph and Benjamin, which are of the side of God. They're of the light side because they come from the younger sister. Now, Joseph has a dream that he is one day going to rule over his brother, even though he's younger than them. And this is what angers his brothers that are of the side of the serpent. So Judah is next seen getting the act together to get all the brothers together and throw Joseph into a pit, and then they decide to sell him to the Ishmaelites. So again, the evil brothers are working together. Just like Ishmael's of the evil side, the brothers of Leah are of the evil side. So they work with the Ishmaelites and sell him off to Egypt. The Leah brothers also, or sons also, go and do things that get them punished. So they think what they did to Joseph, for one thing, gets them punished. And then Judah, like he wrongs this woman who also ends up becoming the mother of the twins and becomes an ancestor to the Messiah. So again, the evil side is what produces the first Messiah. And his behavior angered Jacob, and Jacob gave the birthright of Reuben, who was the firstborn, to the younger son Joseph. But just like in Jacob and Esau, eventually the brothers of the Esau side reconcile with their brother Joseph. So this is the two Messiahs. This is the Messiah ben David and Messiah ben Joseph. Jesus, the first Messiah, is the Messiah ben Joseph. So we see the dueling Messiahs, either two Messiahs or the two Messiahs actually being secretly one, the son of Joseph and the son of David. Jesus is literally the son of Joseph. So he performs the acts of the suffering Messiah, just like coming on the colt and the donkey. That's what Jesus fulfills. Now the second Messiah, or the second coming, is the Messiah of David. Now he's going to be the one that does battle and slaughters the Esau, Edom, Cain side, and restores Israel and rules the world. Now Jesus performs the acts of Satan, the accuser, by accusing the Jews, because he's of the side of Cain or Esau. He accuses the Pharisees as being hypocrites. So he's portraying the evil serpent seed because he's the eldest son. Just like when he turns the tables at the temple, it's because he's playing the side of Esau or Cain, accusing the Jews like Satan does. And it was prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation of Israel, not the whole world, the nation of Israel, and bring the scattered people of God together to Israel. He didn't die for the Gentiles, for the whole world. He put the sins of Israel on him, and he died to save Israel. Now, the word accuser or adversary is where they get the word Satan from. Okay? And someone who accuses someone, like in the court of law, they are innocent. They don't have any sin. So Satan is the seducer, and he is the accuser, and is a necessary evil. Okay? And where does Satan stand or sit? The accuser stand at his right hand. So Satan, in the scriptures, he stands at the right hand of God, like Jesus is said to stand at the right hand of God. So this is from Zechariah right here. And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. So Satan, the adversary, the accuser, stands at the right hand of the angel of the Lord or of God and accuses. And in the courtroom, the prosecuting attorney is not guilty of any crime. Okay, Satan is without sin. He hasn't sinned, even though he is the tempter of man. He hasn't committed any sin. That's why he can accuse people. That's why Jesus says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And then he asks, "Where are all your accusers gone?" So the accusers are Satan. Satan is without sin, like Jesus is. And Samael, or Satan, is the guardian angel of Christianity of Rome. That's how he is viewed as, because that's what he is. Jesus is Satan, the accuser. He accuses the Jews of being hypocrites. So they reject him because he's from the side of Esau, the elder brother. The other similarity, Jesus says that he is the bright and morning star, which is the same thing that is said about Lucifer. "You have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You've been cast down to earth, you who once laid low the nations." So where does Jesus say he's going to go after he dies? He will ascend, and he will ascend to the right hand of God, the power of God. So again, Jesus says, "He who is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone." This is Jesus as Satan the accuser, because the accuser is sinless. Jesus is sinless. So that is what they are saying in these scriptures, okay? They're both the bright morning star. They're both the accuser. They're both from the eldest born, the side of Satan, the serpent seed. Again, from Psalms, "And let Satan stand at his right hand. Let an accuser stand at his right hand." Jesus stands at the right hand of God because he is Satan the accuser. The main angel of death, the head of Satan's. He remains one of God's servants. So you see, the Jewish lore, the Christians made him out to be against God, but in actuality, he is still one of God's servants. He's performing a task, and he hasn't actually sinned himself. He is sinless like Jesus. Now, this brings us to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Now, Jesus is going to take the forms of both goats. One is given to Satan or Azazel, and one is sacrificed to God. So again, Yom Kippur is a Jewish day to atone for misdeeds and become cleansed and purified from them. So before this happens, Satan the accuser accuses Israel to God for their sins, but after this he stops accusing them and instead accuses the Gentiles. So what they did for the goat of Azazel, they sent the goat off to the wilderness. The goat was led to a cliff outside of Jerusalem, and then the goat was pushed off the edge. Now Jesus takes on this form and plays this act out before he begins his ministry by going out into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights to mirror the 40 days in the wilderness by the Israelites. And then he confronts Satan, which is really himself. He's really talking to himself in the wilderness, and Satan tempts him by trying to get him to jump off the cliff, which is what the Azazel goat is supposed to do. So he says, "If you are the Son of God yourself, throw yourself down, because as it says, the angels will give charge over you, and they won't let you dash your foot against a stone." But Jesus doesn't do that. Instead, he tells them that you shall not tempt God, your Lord. So this proves that Jesus is without sin, and he isn't dashed or doesn't tempt God. So again, Satan is the prosecutor. He's one of the sons of God, like Jesus, subordinate to Yahweh. He prosecutes the nation of Judah in the heavenly court. That's what he does. Again, Jesus says, "He who is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone," because that is Satan, that is Jesus, that's who he is. He is without sin, so he passes the first and plays out the first scapegoat ritual where he gets sent off into the wilderness. He confronts himself, so he basically sacrifices himself to himself and proves that he is the true accuser, the one without sin, by not tempting the scriptures of God. Again, it's the twins, the serpent seed, and the godly seed. And Jesus is playing out the serpent seed with his ministry on earth. So after he plays out the role of the Azazel goat, he fulfills the prophecy of being the suffering Messiah, and he becomes the pure sacrifice that's to God. So in that one, he is God sacrificing himself to God. So he plays out both roles of Yom Kippur, both goat roles. And it all links right back to Satan and being the accuser. And again, when he gets done, Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father, just where the accuser stands or sits, which is Satan, because they're one and the same thing. Here's the other connection. So Moses lifted up the serpent, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So Jesus equates himself with the serpent. He does that himself. So the God who didn't want any idols made tells Moses to make a fiery serpent as an idol that's going to be lifted up on a pole to save the people, just like Jesus was. So Jesus on the pole is a serpent on the pole. That's what all this symbolizes. They go together. They're the exact same thing. The sinless one is the accuser, which is Satan, and Jesus, the serpent. So the other aspect of the twins in the story is Thomas, who is called the twin. He acts out the role of Jacob in the story, since Jesus is Esau, the eldest born. So Thomas questions him and asks him why he'd want to go up somewhere where the Jews would kill him, and then he sarcastically says, "Well, I guess we'll all go up there together and die." Again, he questions the serpent seed, Esau, Jesus, when he says that he's going to go to the kingdom, and he says, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Thomas the twin has always questioned him. He doesn't believe on the first Messiah, the Ben Joseph. Again, he doesn't believe in the resurrection unless he can see it himself and put his fingers in the wounds where he was pierced, which eventually happens. Now here's something you probably didn't know about. So the banquet, the wedding banquet that's always talked about in the New Testament, the banquet is referring to the reserving the flesh of the Leviathan at the banquet that will be given to the righteous on the advent of the Messiah. So at the coming of the Messiah, they're going to eat the flesh of the sea serpent, or the world serpent, the behemoth and the Leviathan both. So again, this is connecting Jesus back to the dragon or the Leviathan, okay? Because in Jewish lore, and it's in Isaiah as well, at the time of the Messiah, people are going to eat the flesh of the dragon, of the serpent. That is at the advent of the Messiah. And what is the advent? The arrival of a notable person, thing, or event. So that is Jesus in the New Testament when he appears, okay? That is the advent of the Messiah. He's the Messiah Ben Joseph. So you're going to eat the Leviathan. Again, it's talking about the banquet. The Leviathan is destroyed, and its corpse becomes food for the righteous ones in the age to come. This is the story that Jesus tells that the Jews can't comprehend or understand. They're going to eat the flesh of the Leviathan and the behemoth. That's Jesus himself, because he is the serpent on the pole. He is Satan. He is the dragon. Again, the behemoth is talked about his bones being of bronze, and he is the first of the works of God, just like the Word is the beginning. Again, the bronze bones is like the bronze serpent. Now this is where Jesus breaks it down to the Jews, and they can't comprehend it or understand it. Jesus said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in yourselves. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him, as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father. So he who eats me, he also will live because of me. This is the bread which came down out of heaven, not as the fathers ate and died. He who eats this bread will live forever. There's also a portion in the Psalms where it says that the Leviathan was killed by God and fed to the people in the wilderness, so the Israelites. But they didn't survive. But now the Messiah has come, so if they eat of the Messiah, if they eat of the dragon again, the Leviathan, they will live forever. And the Jews couldn't comprehend this because it violates the Noahide laws. You're not supposed to eat a person in the first place, and you're not supposed to drink blood. But they didn't comprehend that he is Messiah Ben Joseph. So he is the dragon, the serpent, Satan, and that's who they are supposed to eat. That's why he tells them to eat him. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me, and I in them. So the coming of the Messiah brings about eating of the Leviathan, of the dragon, of the serpent, and that is what Jesus does when he gets here. He says, Eat of me. I am the bread of life. He is the Leviathan that gets slaughtered and is eaten because he is the Yom Kippur sacrifice. So he dies, and then you eat of his flesh. Just like the brazen serpent, that's what he is. He's also the dragon, the Leviathan. And there's a lot of other connections between him and the Leviathan. So here's a couple of those too. So this is what it says about the Leviathan. From the beautiful skin of the Leviathan, God will construct canopies for shelters for the righteous. So not only will you eat the Leviathan, but he will be used as skin, which is beautiful and light-bearing, just like the coat of many colors that Joseph had, because Joseph is connected to the Jesus story too, because he saves his people, just like Jesus saves Israel with his sacrifice. The Leviathan is what is used in the Feast of Tabernacles. They make tents out of him. So the same thing that Joseph does is what Christ does. So they're connected. The coat of many colors, the beautiful light scales of the Leviathan. Again, Jesus also had a coat without seam, and they cast lots to get it because they didn't want to ruin it. Because Jesus is a Leviathan, he's the dragon, And his scales are beautiful and illuminating, and he's going to be what everyone tabernacles in, just like Jesus is God with us, the Emmanuel. That's what it all comes back to. So the body of the Leviathan, especially his eyes, possess great illuminating power. So in Job, by his nesting, a light does shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. So fiery eyes, just like Jesus when he comes back in the second coming as Messiah ben David. Just like the Leviathan has flaming eyes that shine, so does Jesus when he comes back. Again, Jesus on the white horse with flaming eyes of fire, which is the exact same thing as the Leviathan. That's why you eat the Leviathan, because you're eating Messiah ben Joseph. You're eating Jesus, the serpent, the dragon. See, the fiery eyes, breathing fire. It's all connected and it's all the same thing. The serpent on the pole, the Leviathan, the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles is supposed to be the actual birth date of Jesus. Again, the Leviathan will be slain and served as a feast for the righteous. His skin will be covering the tents. Just like Jesus. Now when he does this transfiguration thing, what is Jesus? He's bright. He's illuminating, like the Leviathan's skin is supposed to be, because they're the same thing. Jesus is Satan. Okay? He has the light illuminating skin, the coat of many colors, which is what you see in the Feast of Tabernacles, the coat of many colors, the bright. That's the skin of the Leviathan, the skin of Jesus. The coat from Joseph, the cloak that Jesus wore that was cast for lots, the transfiguration, the light bearing, it's all the same thing. Again, the remaining skin of the Leviathan will be spread onto the walls of Jerusalem, thereby illuminating the world with its brightness, the festival of Booths. That's what this is. Jesus is a Leviathan. His skin is what you eat. His skin illuminates the world, and his flesh is the Leviathan's flesh that you eat. Again, his eyes are like a flame of fire, because he is the Leviathan. And that's the festival everyone, all the nations of the world will have to do in the Messianic age. When he comes back again as Messiah ben David, that's when everyone will have to participate in the Feast of Tabernacles. You eat his flesh, the flesh of the Leviathan. That's what you're doing. It all comes back to the same thing. Jesus is the accuser who pretends to be Esau and works for Esau, but in the end, he turns on Esau and destroys the Gentile armies. Again, Emmanuel, God with us. The Leviathan, the Feast of Tabernacles. The Leviathan, you slay his flesh and you eat it. It's for the righteous. His skin, for the tents. Jesus is Satan.